Welcome to another episode of Beyond Coaching. I've got my new friend Ricky Scruggs with me today. He's a former professional baseball player, now works as a Christian life and performance coach, executive coach, leadership consultant, has worked with a wide range of people and has a lot of good stuff to share. So Ricky, thanks for joining me today. Well, I'm an old baseball guy myself, but a much inferior athlete to you, I think. Tell us a little bit of story about your journey there and how you ended up doing what you're doing now as an outgrowth of that.
Yeah, ever since a little kid, I played sports and did stuff, but I mean, baseball was the main love because my uncle and my father loved baseball. And I saw that if I could become a really good baseball player, I'd have their admiration and respect. And I think that's what the driver really was. Didn't realize that for later, but till later. But yeah, I was fortunate enough to grow up in a place called Farmington, New Mexico, where they have probably not probably the number one amateur tournament there called Connie Mack World Series. And got to play with like Ken Griffey Jr. against him and all kinds of really big Manny Ramirez, big stars that came through at that time. And um, that was kind of a neat thing to get to do that. And then because of that opportunity, I got to play JUCO ball and then went to that World Series because our team was really exceptional. And then I played at UNLV. Wasn't drafted out of the UNLV, even though I was first team all Midwest, which was a good conference back then. I was in a conference with Jason Giambi and all those guys. But the thing was, I just wasn't very athletic. It's funny that you said, well, probably not a guy. I just dedicated myself to hitting so well. And I think I was blessed with a good swing that kept me in that zone for a long time and gave me a good chance for success. But athletically, especially when I got to the higher levels, I sat out a year, got asked to go to a tryout, made it, and I played on 4 different independent pro teams. So I was paid to play baseball. And I played with guys who had been in the big leagues and all that, but I never played with an organization, never got to achieve that dream. But what held me back was my mental game, really. I mean, I wasn't as athletic as most at that level, but it was my mental game that held me back, or the lack thereof.
Lack thereof.
Yeah.
So when you, I think I have a similar story too of kind of why I do the work I do is some of the baggage I took away from my athletic career. And I didn't even know it at the time. So I think you alluded to that. Dive more into that of what you didn't understand until your playing career was over of the battles you fought during it.
Well, I studied it so hard, and I tried to study a little bit of sports psychology and do a little bit of visualization and stuff, but I didn't really understand how it worked or what to do, and with that, the science part of it. But the heart part of it is what I really didn't understand was that my identity was so tied to I wanted to be like the best hitter in the world. And because of where I grew up and kind of the atmosphere, thought I was. I broke every high school record that stood since 1969. So I thought I was really good. And then all of a sudden, I wasn't playing at all. Like I went from 3-hole hitter, leading, the team and everything, to not playing in pro ball because of the way the atmosphere. A guy named Ron Whitmire came, who had been with the A's and took Mark McGuire's spot, and he got put right in front of me, and I just was out. And then I was just getting pinch hit, and I wasn't handling it well. And looking back, I realized it was completely because when your identity is tied to what you do, what you stand to lose isn't just baseball or a spot. It's your very life. It feels like death. I write about that in the book, that it was way too drastic. And when you're that tied into it, when pressure comes, you have nothing to hold on to. You're just a victim of the ups and downs of in baseball, game of failure, obviously.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah.
Well, we're getting pretty deep here in the first 4 minutes. So dive.
We'll go deep. I'll try not to, but we're going to go deep.
Well, here's my next question, because it's such a hard thing, because to be such a high level performer, you got to spend so much time, and it's got to be so important to you. How do you keep it from being your identity? And I know you've dug into the science and all sorts of stuff, but that's such a hard balance. What are your advice to people?
Yeah, I think that learning at a young age, because it's an odd thing. You do have to have, like you'd say, Tiger Woods' identity was a golfer, right? But I believe there was a support there. There was a thing. And obviously, if you're the most very, very talented and you had the most preparation possible, you can probably do it. You can probably have that kind of pressure and produce yourself a really good guy. But that is ultra rare, right? For most of us, we're going to run into talent that's better than ours.
Yeah.
We're going to run into situations where our preparation may come up short. And then it's like, okay, who am I if I fail here? So we teach coaches and we talk to, we try to build frameworks that says you represent something bigger than the game, bigger than yourself when you're out there. Because I talk about, when I get an athlete and I can tell he's in that mode, like it's so cool when I catch an athlete and he's 23 years old and he's at the spot I was, right? He's losing it, man. Coach doesn't like me. Everything's unfair. This is, why is this happening to me? And I'm able to tell them, hey, look, why did your mom sign you up in the first place, right? Why did she take you to Pee Wee football, right? You're in college now and you want to play in the NFL. Well, I suppose she wanted me to like hang out with other kids. I'm like, yeah. She wanted you to relate with other kids. She wanted you to be challenged and competition and learn and grow, right? I said, what if the goal really is the same thing now? What if the goal should be relationship? What's your relationship to your opponent? What's your relationship to your teammates like? What if you fostered that? Because let's go the other way. Why do you want to play in the Super Bowl? And when I get underneath all the whys, and it takes a good 20, 30 minutes, we end up digging up. Well, it's because it's the biggest social event. Everybody's tailgating. Everybody's talking about it. They're all around the water cooler and you're going everywhere. And so what they want is not the money and the fame. They want what they think it's going to buy them, which is always a feeling. And that feeling is always attached to a relationship. So why not just go for the relationship, man? Why not just make that what it's about? Because I believe that's what it is about. I believe that's what everything's about. So if my goal switches to how can I be challenged here? How can I find my best? And how can I help my opponent find my best? And realize that's what it's about, is uplifting everybody around me and do it. Then I'm on a mission. Then I feel like I belong because belonging is a big part of this. So that's the way. It's kind of it took me a long time in life. And now I'm a much better competitor. I wouldn't say I'm a fierce competitor. I used to be a fierce competitor when I got pissed, but now I'm a powerful competitor in whatever I do because I'm not concerned with what people think of me. Because when you're thinking about the other person, it doesn't really matter what they think. When I'm trying to inspire my teammates, I'm not worried about them judging me. So it flips the script quite a bit. And, and most of this came through biblical study. I took sports psychology that we'd studied, ad nauseum at I had a baseball academy I opened in 2003. I left the sales world. I was a sales manager and sales trainer for Toyota. Spent all my money and put it into a baseball academy because I wanted to do something with meaning. Right. And that's the other thing I do is I try to attach a different meaning to this whole thing. And if you have a powerful meaning, it helps. But anyway, we were teaching the sports psychology and this, sort of representing something else. And we were touching on champion because I always like to look up definitions. Anyway, you get really deep into it and you realize that sports psychology comes up short because it's not addressing the heart. It's not addressing our social baggage. I mean, you can't use the word baggage. I think it's good.
Yeah. But I'll share one of my stories because it connects so well. I was pretty active in a group called Athletes in Action. And I think there's a lot of parallels what you're saying and what they're doing. And after my freshman year of college, very similar story. Went to a small school. I was best player, all that kind of stuff. Go to college and I fail. And then I get on an Athletes in Action team after my freshman year of college, and I'm playing in the New York Collegiate Baseball League. This is actually the opening to the book Dustin and I wrote, who does the stuff with me. And our first game up there's a left-handed pitcher on the mound from Texas Tech. And he struck me out looking after breaking my bat twice on foul balls in my first game.
You're righty.
I was a righty.
Okay.
So no excuses. And I can still go back to that moment 25 years later of walking back to the dugout feeling like my world and my identity was crumbling around me. And it took me a year of quitting the sport, coming back to gain a perspective of why I did it and the relationships with teammates, the growth, all this kind of stuff. And looking back, it's so silly because the pitcher on the mound that night was a guy named Dallas Braden, who ended up pitching in the big leagues for I don't know how many years through one of the one of the perfect games in Major League Baseball history. And here I am walking back to my dugout as a D3 athlete thinking, "Oh, I suck and my identity is crumbling." It turns out that dude's pretty good, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
And it was just a total lack of perspective. And
What's the name of the book, bro?
we got 2. One's called Leading Coaching the 21st Century Athlete, and then we have one of Athletic Department Leadership and Developing Coaches. Um, they were actually working on one that's research-based that we have a draft done called, Sustaining Excellence, which we surveyed a bunch of one of our things is everybody talks about the Division I level and does very little research on the other levels. So we surveyed longtime experienced, highly successful wins and losses coaches at the D2, D3, and AI level. And what does it take to sustain winning over time? And all the stuff we're finding is very similar. It's relationship based, it is perspective, and how do we do this together? Uh, yeah, so it's fascinating the alignment of what you're saying and what I'm saying. What we're finding.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that about. I just had someone send me, which I didn't know existed, a film of the 1986 Connie Mack World Series that I was in. And I struggled the first game, and I didn't realize that I was 17. I was the only 17-year-old on there. And this guy had already pitched a year at Vanderbilt because of his age or whatever. So he was 18 and already had a year of college. And he struck me out twice that night. And that was like, you didn't strike me
Yeah.
out in my mind. And I remember going back to the dugout, and the only way I can describe it, you might relate to this because what you just said, is when Elf found out that he wasn't an elf.
Yep.
And the room starts spinning, right? And he's like, whoa. That's how I felt. I was in the dugout going, what is happening to my world? Like literally, like your nervous system is so attached. And so it's really important. I mean, I didn't get introduced to Athletes in Action or Fellowship Christian Athletes or any of that stuff until I had the baseball academies when I discovered those things existed here in Tucson. Boy, I wish someone would have talked to me a little bit about, your value as a human being and as a son. Those things.
And you don't want to trivialize it, but you also want to find a way to put your arm around them. And I wish somebody had done it for me earlier of this sport thing's kind of stupid. It's made up adversity and we're defining ourselves as a person. It's like, chill out, dude. That kind of thing. Like, I know how important it was to me, so I don't want to lessen the importance to them, but gain some perspective would be helpful for everybody.
Yeah, I used to have a deal where I had this kid named Tristan who ended up becoming an All-American from walking on. And I would have him visualize himself in a helicopter up above the warm-ups and silent and just seeing the activity going on, and then visualize himself going up above the world, and then told him, hey, there's a billion Chinese people who don't know you're playing today.
Yeah.
I mean, let's get it a little bit of perspective. I got that from a kid named Chris Elliott, I was struggling that year, the exact year I'm telling you that I was losing my identity. This kid, Chris Elliott, was a switch hitter. He was a little guy. He was hitting like 410 from both sides of the plate. And he was talking about Christianity. And he was like, hey, Rick, this is Monopoly, man. I said, how are you doing this? How are you staying so calm and cool? He goes, because it's a joke. This is a game of Monopoly. And I'm like, you're kidding. You're going to get picked up if you keep hitting like this. He goes, Rick, man, this doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
In light of eternity. Like he had a really good head on his shoulders for a 23-year-old or whatever we were.
Yeah. Okay.
And, he would ask me like, hey, Rick, what's perfect in your life? Well, I guess my car keys are perfect. He's like, no, they would have to work forever and they're going to wear out one day and be in a junk heap. So try again. And I couldn't say anything that was perfect. And he's like, well, then why are you trying to be perfect? And then he'd say like, and then where'd you get the idea of perfect anyway? And I'm like, where did we get the idea of perfect? We've never seen anything perfect. And that's how he led me into,
wow.
The Bible says God placed perfection and placed him in your heart so that you would know that this life is and everything. I was like, wow, man. But of course it didn't sink in. I was like, I got to get a hit. I got to get a stupid hit next time up. And not a hit. I thought I had to hit it on the moon in order to impress the coach enough to get to play. So it was quite intense in our room.
Yeah. I'll lead in this question with another quick story. So after my freshman summer, I quit baseball for a year and I would have given all sorts of reasons why, but the core of it was I didn't handle the failure well. And that spring, I ended up, of my second year of college, I coached at a local high school while I was in school, and it was a C team bad C team, high school team, and I had a blast. And one thing I learned is, I assumed everybody knew I was struggling and, judging me that Rob's not as good as he thought, all this kind of stuff. And what I learned coaching that C team is everyone was so focused. Nobody cared how anybody else was doing. And nobody knew the center fielder was 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts except for me, him, and his mom, unless he started throwing a fit.
Yeah.
And I think, and I'm curious your reflection on this, flash forward, that's over 20 years ago. That's pre-Facebook even. In today's world now, that spotlight effect is magnified
Mm.
because of what we're putting out there on social media, where I think it's really hard to teach kids, "Hey, man, focus on the relationships and just being the best version of yourself because nobody else really cares," which I don't think they do. But in the social media environment, it's just everything's so elevated. It's hard to get out of that perspective of everybody's noticing when I have a bad day. Are you
Yeah.
seeing similar, or give me your thoughts on that?
Oh, I just agree entirely. Like, the old saying that, we're thinking about what people are thinking of us 99% of the time, and 99% of the time they are.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think you tell them, the coaches, like I told them, I would tell the people like coaching, I was like, as a coach, if your body language is good and you're not amplifying your own mistakes by looking at your glove and
Mhm,
knocking your head around or whatever, I don't notice that I don't know you're 0 for 2. Like, I don't think about everybody's stats. I'm
mhm,
looking at your body language and how you're handling things. And I'm going to stick with you. It's when I start to see you crumble, and then I got to go, hey, for the team's best side, I got to get you some perspective on good cheers.
mhm,
But I agree with you entirely. I think that, I used to tell the players 20 years ago, hey, self uh, self consciousness is selfishness, right? You're thinking of
mhm,
yourself. So the thinking that you want to love your teammates and love your opponent, and you want to do something that's inspiring instead of trying to get approval from the fans. You want to inspire them, right?
mhm.
You can do that in bad times and in good times, and so yeah, that's powerful way to think.
Yeah. So I can't remember where I saw this in one of your work. You said the invisible world determines the visible world. Go deeper into that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously your podcast is a Christian podcast and people
Mm,
understand the biblical worldview. But when I work with people who don't, I talk to them about, there is a hidden, invisible, intangible world that controls this world. And it's the only one that really matters. And I even get them eventually towards prayer,
mhm,
because this world is always trying to pull you, like the social media, your parents, your peers, the press, which is social media. And
mhm,
like when I taught this 20 years ago, it was your parents, your peers, the press, and your past are trying so hard to suck you into the tangible world that you need to go in the morning first thing and visit the world of you know, unlimited possibilities. I think it's like when you go shop for a car, right? You go shop for a certain brand of car, like a red Chevy truck, you look at it, right? And you never really paid attention to red Chevy trucks before. And then when you go out of there and think about it for a week, all you see on the street is red Chevy trucks. And I tell them the goal of prayer, the goal of in the morning is not just like trying to, you know, go to God and get him to give you stuff, is for you to recognize the beauty and the unlimited possibilities of that world, so that when you get back into your life, you begin to see the red trucks of it. You begin to see
mhm,
the beauty, you begin to understand, oh, that's a thing that's a real thing. Because, and if they don't believe me, I just say, hey, well, look at your chair. What was your chair before it was a chair? Well, it was the materials.
mhm,
It was a blueprint, and it was an idea first. So it was an
mhm.
idea first. It was a blueprint, which is a strategy, which is the mind. And then it's the chair. And when I tell them, I say, now, which one would you rank as most important? Well, it has to, you'd have to rank the invisible world as most important. Well, then why are we focusing 99% of our time on the physical? Why, when a guy has a messed up swing, we go directly to tell him to keep his shoulder in instead of finding out if there's something spiritual or mental that's causing him to push, right? And so when I taught hitting instruction, I was always focused on, okay, let's try to give him the idea, figure it out, because I would find out guys stepping in the bucket. I figure out he's not afraid of the ball first. Secondly, does he know where he's supposed to hit that ball? or is he allowing it to travel too far? And his smart brain is saying, I need more space. So he's backing out,
Mhm.
right? Once you teach him where to hit the ball, now I've fixed his strategy. No more pulling his shoulder. I know, when I was a kid, they'd be like,
Yeah.
grab your shirt with your shoulder and force your shoulder in, and your brain is going to fight that change. So we just, for the very beginning of when I'm coaching an executive or an entrepreneur or anybody, is you got to get in the invisible, intangible world of unlimited possibility and pull yourself back there all the time.
Mhm.
Try your best to always operate from there. And that solves a bunch of the problems.
Yeah. Give me another example. You talked about starting the morning in prayer or solitude or whatever everybody's,
Mhm.
um, wherever you fall on that. What are some other practical ways for people to pull them outside the moment and gain perspective?
Well, when I think of unlimited possibility, I think of the fact that we are constantly judging ourselves.
Mhm.
And again, even if I work with uh, an executive who's just scattered and he's not feeling peace and he's looking for more meaning in his life, that's mostly what I try to give is the meaning, because then everything else falls in place. Is I talk about, why are you judging yourself? And I even talk about, well, you look at the scriptures, and what was the very first problem in humanity, right? They didn't eat of the tree of sin. They ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil,
Yep.
which caused them to judge situations and then try to fix it themselves. Right. And so you look at, the serpent says, well, God knows if you eat of the fruit, your eyes will be opened and you'll know good from evil. Right. And I would think to myself, you know what? That's right. Like, why would God not want me to know good from evil? It's good to know good and bad, but that's not the truth. You got to remember who's talking there. It's the serpent. He's lying. What did God say? He said, don't eat of that because it's going to give you the knowledge of good and evil, which is, in my mind, the awareness that there is such a thing as good and such a thing as evil, which means you'll begin to judge your situation. So if I'm working with a golfer and he's standing over you know, $1 million putt, right? How is he supposed to release that result? And it's like me when I was like, I got to get a hit. I got to go 4 for 4 or I'm not going to get picked
Mm.
up by this guy. How do I release that result? Well, the first step to actually being practical about it, because sports psychologists just tell you, don't be too attached. Try not to care so much. Don't try too hard. Okay, I dedicated my whole life to this. I swing the bat 250 times a night. I get up in the morning, I go to weights, I go to college for 4 or 6 hours, then I go hit the field for another 7 or 8 hours. Then I go home and think about baseball. And now you're going to tell me not to care too much when I'm in a conference game. I do want to care. I want to give my very best. I want to honor the situation, my opponent, and all this stuff. But I don't know if quote unquote failure in this particular moment isn't going to be the catalyst for success later.
Mhm.
I don't know if I fall out of a tree and break my arm, which seems bad, right? Because I got to sit out for weeks and weeks from my season, or if I would have climbed up 5 more rungs the next week and broke my neck and been paralyzed for life. I don't know what's good or bad. So for me, I try to offer practical, logical reasons for the athlete or the executive or the entrepreneur to suspend judgment, not just when they look back. Because a lot of times we look back and we go, oh, yeah, I can see the good now. Like if that wouldn't have happened, this wouldn't have happened, then I wouldn't have met my wife, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
But I want you to look into the next moment that you're so nervous about and say, hey, I don't know what a good or bad result is here. Let's just go and do as if I'm the Lord, doing it as best I can. And, that's the way you can leave the results
Yeah.
in my mind. It's the way you can leave it up. And then I say, guess what happens? It puts you in an unlimited possibility. You asked about that. The exercise I like is I would say to you, Rob, okay, what's the farthest ball you ever hit? And you might have a picture in your head of 400 shot, whatever. And you think to yourself that 400. Well, that's a good result. But focusing on that good result is actually a barrier now. It's a
Mhm.
limit. So I teach my athletes, if someone says, hey, what's the farthest ball you ever hit? Or what's the most yardage you ever ran in a game? The answer is, I don't know. I haven't hit it yet.
Hmm.
Right. Because the energy there is like, whoa, I'm in the world of unlimited possibility. I'm able to look and go, wow, a miracle could happen tonight. Right. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the miraculous. That's why we play.
Yeah. That's good stuff. So something yeah, one thing I latched on to that you said is we don't know whether the result's good or bad. And so in some ways was living my nightmare literally last night where my 8-year-old's playing coach pitch. They're in there. They have this playoff, and there's a rule in the league of if a ball goes to the outfield, the kids stop run. They can run, but if it gets once it gets back to the infield, you stop at whatever bag you're at.
Mhm.
So they're in their playoff, they're in the semifinals, and there's a play in the last inning where the other team's coaches and the umpire didn't notice, sent the kids in when they should have stopped. The ball was in the infield. And the parents on our team are going nuts. And I am just so uncomfortable. And it's a tie game, whatever, in this 12 game church league we're playing in. And the next play is a pop up, and one of our kids miraculously catches it. And the kids are running back to the dugout to go to extra innings and so pumped. I'm watching the dugout. It's like, this is fun. And
All
the
right.
parents are screaming and pissed because we should have won if they wanted all that kind of stuff. And it was such an interesting juxtaposition of the parents can't let it go. And the kids don't even notice. They're so excited. Their buddy just made a play and they get to play extra innings. And it was just a frame switch where I turned to my wife and I'm like, there's no way we're talking on the way home about the umpire's missed call because this is such a cool memory for them. Let's not plant that seed. And
Fine.
it just, yeah, it feels like it aligns with what you're saying. And gosh, parents and coaches and everybody can screw it up for the athletes quite a bit.
Well, did they win?
They ended up losing. They usually 3 innings in an hour, and they played 8 innings. And
You
my
know,
son,
some people do this naturally because I was in that same college or junior college. And what is it? Connie Mack World Series with a buddy named Todd. And we're down to this thing. We're down by 2 or something. And I'm coming up with like 2 guys on. And I'm in the hole or something. And he's like, man, isn't this awesome? And I'm like, not really. Like there's 2 outs and we're down by 2 and we got, and I'm like, man, I don't know. I hope we can get, I hope I can get to the day. I want to get a shot to come up because back then I thought if I get up, we're going to be all right. And he's like, no, man, this is why we play. Look around, man. Look around. This is
yeah,
awesome. And I was like, wow, it's one of those things I look back at and think, man, he got it, right? Like
yeah,
going to extra innings, even if you end up losing, can be an experience that impacts those kids. And again, find some success at another time, right? Or we got to believe all things are working out to the good for all of us, the ultimate good, not my good necessarily, but the ultimate good. We don't know what would have happened if the game ended sooner. Someone could have got killed in a car wreck on the way home. Who
yeah.
knows?
So my real job, I'm an AD at Friends University. It's an NAI school in Wichita, Kansas, and it's really I get it. It's real easy for my chair to say this, but whatever. My favorite part of my job is seeing our coaches, our kids get to that moment, and then just getting a chance to experience it.
Yeah.
And it's it's hard as a coach because you're so lost in it. But I harp on our coaches of, hey, don't forget to step back and enjoy the moment because they're hard to get to, and it's pretty fun, And
Yeah.
but it's really hard to do when you're lost in the middle of it. I think more people are like how you were of like, hey, we're 2 runs down. This is bad. Instead of, boy, what a cool opportunity experience to have with my friends.
And the joy, you know, so in the book, I got these the traits of a champion and they're based on the fruits of the spirit, but they're rewritten for an athlete and to look at their situation. Resilience and enjoying a challenge is realizing that no matter what happens, I'm going to be better. I'm going to be more complete and more whole after this experience.
Mhm.
And that joy gives you strength, right? So I think not only are you good to tell your coaches to wisely, when you're climbing a mountain, turn around once in a while, and enjoy the view. But
Mhm.
also doing that puts you in a better performance state to where your mind can think better and they're probably more likely to win. I tell people this is not some mamby-pamby like, hey, let's be nice guys thing. This is the path to
Yep.
being the most powerful performer you can possibly be in the most exclusive moments because
Yeah.
you understand the perspective. So yeah, it's amazing. I love that you're an AD.
Yeah.
That you must get a chance to impact.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
yeah, impact a lot of people.
everything you're saying, it's counterintuitive, right? Because, yeah, I mean, you hold on loosely and you have a chance to perform better. And it's here's an interesting one for you. Give me your reaction. So the last 3 years, we've kind of we do end of the year program evaluations where every athlete fills out an anonymous form on their experience. And we started putting research questions in there, just trying to get our kids better. And one of them is what motivates you to participate in your sport. And so we have over 2,000 responses now over a couple year period. And winning has been the primary motivator of 2 teams over 3 years. And both those teams stunk. And, there's a lot of ways to nitpick it. Who knows if it, how to interpret. But I think it connects to this conversation of they got so lost in the we need a win, they weren't doing the things that actually cause winning. And the most winning comes from either number one rate of response was either self-improvement or relationships. Those were the 2. If they focused on those, that team had a better chance to win.
Yeah. If I have an athlete or an executive or somebody who wants to that's reach a certain goal, we immediately reframe it. Like I want to win state championship as a coach. No, the goal is to become the type of team who wins state championships.
Yeah.
Because who you're becoming is far more important than what you're accomplishing, right?
Yeah.
And so, and so what was it? It was John Wooden. I mean, it's a miracle that there's coaches out there that don't operate this way, knowing that, like John Wooden said,
Yeah.
the worst thing a guy can think about in terms of, performance is losing. The second worst thing is winning.
Winning.
So it's amazing, and I guess that's why we need athletic directors, and we got to continue to study this stuff and spread the word because it is so counterintuitive.
Yeah.
The winning just seems to be this thing that's your path. And in the book, the whole thing is couched in athletic terms, right? There's the game, and it's this thing that you're compared, even the weight of your baby, like from the first time you come out, like he's in the 80th percentile. It's like 18 weeks old and he's in the 80th percentile, and they're telling people at work about that. It's like, what are we doing?
And it's so hard though when you put sport and the emotion and the investment involved. I mean, I can think of 1 or 2 times this year I'm at one of our games and I drive my wife crazy. I'm not fun to fight with because I'm just calm. I don't. But there's a few times at our games this year where I get emotional and you yell at an official or do something, and it's just like, it's real easy to sit here and us talking on a podcast saying all these things, but it's so hard in the moment. And revisiting it over and over and over again, how do we maintain perspective?
The high school team in 2023, it's been pretty recent, and I had taken like a hiatus of like 12 years because I was an administrator. Got on the field and it was the first time I coached since I really processed all this stuff. Really, really, it goes from your head to your heart when you write a book, as you know.
Yeah.
It crystallizes what you're thinking about. Is it really true? And so I really believed it, but same thing, it's like the struggle I had with that was the celebration culture and, I just had a real struggle, getting the kids to understand. And also the idea of looking on social media and just basically predicting the outcome of the game. Like with everything I knew, I'm like, we've got to stop thinking we got this game won or that game won.
Yeah.
I mean, we beat the team that won state, but we lost to this terrible team in the first round of the state playoffs because they really took them lightly. And I was like, yeah. Anyway, it's just, you're right. You get caught up too. You get all into it, you get a bad call.
Yep.
And you gotta, I'd be like, hey, and then I think to myself, as quick as I can, wait, we don't know if this might work out. And we're working out just according to plan. And, and it's really important that you do that because otherwise you can't refresh that moment and win the next pitch. Yeah. It's really about win the pitch. It's not win the game. It's let's do the best we can to own this particular moment. Right.
Yeah.
I think it's fun as heck. That's what we do. We like it.
And I think that's the key of, not expecting ourselves to be perfect. And I'm going to have those moments, and how the success is how quickly can I get back to perspective?
You said something a minute ago that I really thought about. You said I was living my nightmare.
Yeah.
And firstly, he's got his kids all grown and almost 30, 2 of them are almost 30 and one is 30. It's like, first of all, you got an 8-year-old kid.
Mm-hmm.
You're coaching. So come on, man. I wish I would like pay all the money. I'd go into $10 million debt tomorrow. Yeah. But also that's your game as a coach. Like I had to tell myself that I don't get to play the game, but I get to play the inner game of how do I, and So it's almost like you could see the fans going crazy and the kids doing this, and you can step back and look at that like this game that you're behind in, and that there's a problem, and you're like,
Yeah.
"Isn't this cool, man?
Yeah.
I don't have to." One of the principles that I learned years ago was that it takes two to change the energy in the room. You have to give permission for someone to change your energy. And me being an emotional guy, having all my problems as a kid and all the things, it's taken a long time. I'm still working on myself, like to be emotionally sober, right?
Yeah.
And so that's your game as a coach. Like that's your moment to be like, okay, I'm going to enjoy this challenge.
Mhm.
What am I doing? Am I out here fighting because I want to win because I got to show my ego, or am I here fighting? Sometimes you got to get kicked out of the game
Yeah.
because you got to go defend your guys.
Mhm.
Like it's a part of it, right? But why you're out there kicking dirt and screaming in the guy's face is more important than what you're saying, or you know what I mean, or what you're fighting for, right? It's like, why, if you're doing it for the right reasons, it's all right.
Yeah.
We're not here to just lay down, because our opponent deserves our best if we understand competition. And
Mhm.
that's how I used to give away a lot of at bats. If we were up by 8, I didn't see the point, and so I would be a little bit too relaxed at the dish, and then everybody else has gone 4 for 4 that game, and you end up going 1 for 4 because you didn't really compete as well as you could have, right?
Mhm.
But then as I got learning about this stuff, I would help my guys really do well, because it'd be like, hey, that guy owes you. He's the third pitcher out of the pen. He deserves your best, right? This team deserves our best. I'm not gonna let up on a team just because they're not they're not doing well or they're not coached well. I'm not gonna run, but that's because I don't want to injure one of my guys, right? There's no reason to take unreasonable risks, but I'm gonna, you know, treat people the way I want to be treated. I wouldn't want some team to take it easy on us because we're having a bad game.
Yeah.
I want them to show us our weaknesses. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
And yeah, I learned on the AIA stuff. I mean, in pure competition, you want your opponent at their best too.
absolutely.
Yeah, let's go at it. So,
Like gaining that joy from it. Like, oh wow, I like this challenge. This guy's,
yeah. Yeah.
this guy done well, and he hasn't given up a run in like 4 outings, and you're like, all right, let's
Mhm.
go. This is what I like.
Yeah.
You know?
Cool.
So it's beautiful.
Yeah. All right. I want to wrap up with 2 things. One, I want you to take just a few seconds, share about the work you do and how people can connect with you.
Yeah. You can message me, I guess, through my website. Just go to rickyscruggs.com and you know, either just email me the contact page or whatever. Um, yeah. And work I do is I work with individuals quite a bit, but only about 8 to 10 at a time. And so, if you want to work with me, I would love to, it depends on your story, like what you want to do. I started a cohort for athletes, young athletes, because I found that one-on-one is great, but I'm saying the same things over and over and teaching the same principles over and over. So, I do it for college and high school athletics. If you want to, if your son's struggling, if he's thinking that he's getting cheated by the coaches or whatever the situation will be, um, I think we can give him some really powerful perspective. And come from a background in sales, I like to, like I said, practically convince them. When I talk about God, it's just love.
Mhm.
Talking about Jesus, it's truth and grace, right? And do you want, are you representing something bigger than yourself? We didn't get to talk about the champions model, but there's a performance model that really helps a young athlete to change that identity, but not lose one bit of their edge, right?
Mhm.
And so, because we want to do well, we were created, I think, to share in the glory and to enjoy that stuff. But I don't like to talk about God as if he's like the bearded guy in the sky, right?
Mhm.
There's definitions for love. I get 3 practical definitions for love, and are you willing to surrender to that and do that instead of get self-centered and nervous and all that stuff? Um, Truth is the same thing, right? We want to speak to ourselves. When you talk self-talk, when you talk about all that, the work I do is to help somebody refine the way they speak to themselves so that it's true, because we lie to ourselves all the time. So, oh, I always strike out. I can't hit the curveball. That's not true in this exact moment, right? You could say in the past, I've struggled with the curveball, which again, just like that, what's the farthest ball you ever hit? I don't know. I haven't hit it yet. It unlocks something inside you when you say, well, in the past, I've struggled. it opens up a possibility for the future. And so we just teach guys how to effectively do these things, and then how to organize their days and their lives around being the type of person off the field, so that when you get on the field, it's not a transition. It's not a, hey, get hyped up for game day. It's not game face. It's like, this is what I've been doing 24/7, building relationships, loving challenges, operating with excellence, all that stuff, so that, in the end, they perform. And so, yeah, that's it. And I got the book. It's called The Champion Within, and it's real short, 200-page deal that it just talks about home is not a place that I always think you're trying to get around and score a run. Home is a place you got to find first, right? You got to know who you are, know your identity. It's an acronym. And then it's the game. It's got the three enemies we have: the world, Satan, and our self-centered sin nature. So it's the game, the score, which is trying to focus on results, and then the jersey, which is trying to build an identity for myself, a false identity. And then it goes to the mind, which is the umpire, this voice that tells us if we're out or safe. Anyway, it goes all the way down to defining competition, the rivalry, and the man in the space in between, defining a champion, and then the trade, which is walking you through how to trade your identity for a champion. And then it has some extra innings. Why do we do what we do? And living in light of eternity, long-term contract, it's called. So if you like baseball, it's perfect, right? But even if you don't like baseball, it's no more than the normal metaphors in life about baseball,
Yeah,
So, yeah, it just walks you through the model, and it's what I believe in life and sport. And so I just want to get the message out as much as possible. So thank you for letting me.
cool. Right on.
About it. It's on Amazon, by the way. I'm probably not very good at promoting.
Well, I was going to say, everyone listening, I'll put it all in the show notes too, so you can link to your website and link to the book, all that kind of stuff. So very cool. And then the last thing, we always wrap up with new guests with a rapid fire round. So I'm going to throw 3 or 4 questions at you, and you have no longer than 30 seconds to answer any of them.
Okay. Keep it short.
All right. What's one book that has greatly influenced your life?
Oh, wow. What just popped into my head was Malcolm Gladwell's David and Goliath, about how underdogs aren't actually underdogs because they win more often.
Nice. How has a failure set you up for later success? Or said differently, do you have a favorite failure?
A favorite failure? I would say, wow, that is a really tough question. Really tough question. Favorite failure? I think failing to know who I was, was really good. I think it's turning out to be a wonderful thing because I sought my identity elsewhere. And, it's rock solid.
Cool. How do you define success in your current work?
Oh, wow. Success is having amazing, fulfilling relationships in your life.
Right on.
With yourself and your higher power and, and everybody around.
The last one I'll say it twice, but it's my favorite one. So in the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life? So in the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
No, this is going to be very counterintuitive. I've come to believe that I'm more messed up than I thought. So that belief has actually improved my life the most because I'm digging deep into why our nervous system still, because the subtitle is Overcome Approval Addiction and Compete with Greatness. And when I got saved 20 years ago, a lot of things changed and a lot of things improved, and it was amazing. But just the same as I worked in an addictions facility for 2 years, just the same as people were saved, but their drug addiction, their nervous system, and their habits didn't. I've realized now that over the years I've still had some things that need to be dealt with, and I'm thankfully getting in the support group, and I have somebody I meet with, a friend, all men, women too, but we should be meeting with somebody once a week. I meet with them for 2 or 3 hours, and we just get real with each other. And so that habit that's the one I would say. The habit was meeting with another man for the last 3 years for like 2.5, 3 hours and getting real with them. We call it the booth. had a nonprofit that's called Building Champions for Life. And we try to support that idea of men having a one-on-one accountability guy. Not like church accountability, like trying to, but I don't know how to explain it, but that's the habit. Anyway, sorry.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, this was fun. Thank you so much for taking the time.
I appreciate you, Rob, man. This is really cool. Yeah, I'm comforted to know that there's athletic directors, who are seeking, the invisible excellence that's out there and impacting kids' lives, because it's really important.
It is. So I'm glad. Yeah, I always find it encouraging these conversations, hearing other people that are doing work that matters. So I think you're doing that. So thanks again.
Yeah, if I can ever do anything for you, let me know, man, because I love training in groups and talking to people. It's kind of my life.
Cool.
Yeah. All right, man.
All right. Have a great day.
You too. God bless.
If this podcast is helpful to you, we go deeper in our weekly Substack newsletter. Subscribe at impactfulcoachingproject.substack.com. Every Monday, we share practical leadership frameworks, insights, and research for coaches, athletic directors, and leaders who want to build sustainable excellence. Link is in the episode description. It's free.